So today we're going to talk about the menus and the geometries in Parish Online. My usual sort of starting notice that suggests that we've got quite a lot of slides to go through. So I tend to go through them quite quickly, but don't worry about them because you'll get a presentation afterwards that lists every slide, and you also get a copy of this recording. So if you wish to review in slow time, that's the idea. And this presentation is full of hyperlinks to the Parish Online knowledge base. So lots of links to take you to the more detailed explanation if you find the need. By all means, interrupt me as we're going along if you have a question or you need time. And I don't think we need to use the chat today because we should be able to talk to each other. So we're going to cover the geometries and the menus on the top row, and then we'll have some fun doing an interactive session where we're going to create 3 layers, one of each type of geometry, just so you can see the difference. Then we're going to show all 3 together, and then we'll ask you for comments and rudeness. So the interactive session, just in case, well, I think both of you got your acts together in terms of Parish Online, so you don't need to bother with this one, and we'll move on. So going into Parish Online, all along the top row of the screen is a bunch of menu items. And the first one on the top left, it looks like 3 horizontal lines, which the American in me calls hamburger, because that's what the Americans always refer to, that sort of menu choice. I can't remember what the English word is for it, but anyway. So if you click on the hamburger icon, which I'm just going to do, what it does is turn off the left-hand column and give you the full screen to see a map with. There's a downside to this, which is a lot of what you're doing in Parish Online requires that left-hand column to be visible. So think of this hamburger menu as a toggle. You toggle it on, you toggle it off. And I'm just going to toggle it back on again by clicking on it. And it's back on. And the next item along is the view menu. And it gives you 3 choices. Let's start with bookmarks. So I'm going to select bookmarks. And if you have any bookmarks, this is where they all pop up. Now, because we're on my screen, I have lots of bookmarks in the left-hand column. There's no particular order in which they show up, which is slightly unhelpful, but we'll get to how you get around that in a minute. The whole point of bookmarks is that when you're in Parish Online, you're often moving around, you're changing scales, you're zooming left or right, whatever it is that you're doing. When you've finished adding a feature, it's very helpful to have that particular layer, that particular position, that particular zoom and scroll all saved, so you can just jump straight back to it. So I'm going to show you how it works. So if you look at the bottom left corner, you'll see there's a little village called Thorney in the bottom left, and the scale of the screen here is 1,000 meters, if you can see that well. What I'm going to do is to click on the first item here, up here, which happens to be a planning application. So I'm clicking on that, and you'll see that instantly this scale has changed to the 50-meter scale. Thorney has disappeared. We're nowhere near Thorney, and the particular planning application that we clicked on is this one here. And you can now do the usual thing within Parish Online. You can click on that and the left-hand column will change to the data record for that particular planning application. Later on, we'll talk in the styling session, which is sort of a later session. We can show you how we get the different colors. So a red planning application was refused, a green one was accepted. And by now has actually been implemented, this one. Well, this is back in 2020, so one would hope so, but you see the point. So the whole point of bookmarks is to jump you to wherever you want to be at the right scale, the right color, the right layer, and the right feature highlighted. So very, very helpful. To get a bookmark, you can find a particular one, I'm sorry. You can just go to your Control F in your computer, which is just a matter of clicking on Control F, which I'm doing now. And you'll notice that this little search box opens up on the top of the screen. And here you can type in anything you wish. So I've typed in the first numbers I can remember, and it immediately finds for me those close matches. And then it's easier enough to click on the Collect I Won, and then off I go. So important note here, bookmarks are specific to the log-on account that you join Parish Online with. So if you want to share your bookmarks with other people, which you may do if you're, for instance, the parish clerk and you're highlighting the, what's the word I'm looking for? The planning application for other members of your council, then they can't see the bookmarks unless you're using an account that they can all log into. So to get around that issue, I create a single parish council account here in Long Sutton, which everybody who's on the parish council has the account. They can all log in using the same password, and the system has no problems in coping with everybody logged in to the same account at the same time. It works just fine. So I just realized that this course doesn't actually tell you how to add a new bookmark, but when you get to the first bookmark screen, it gives you the option of adding a new one. You just type in there whatever title you want. So that's how they work. So we're now going to go back to the View menu up here and click on that and try the next one, which is Coordinate Finder. Now, the point of Coordinate Finder is when someone says, can you tell me where such and such a place is? And they give you the coordinates, and you are able to type the coordinates into Parish Online, and it'll take you to where the actual place is. So I'm clicking on Coordinate Finder, and that pops this left-hand column, and you get a mini menu up here. So the coordinate type has got three choices: British National Grid, straightforward Latin long, or something weird called WGS 84. But basically, depending on which one you enter, you get either Eastings or Northings or Latin long that you're invited to put in here. Now, please note that these are in decimal format. So if you're doing Latin long and you're used to hours, minutes, and second, you're going to have to convert those to a decimal number, which you can do by clicking on this link here, and I'll take you to a place that shows you how to convert your lat long into a decimal. By the same issue, if you're in latitude and longitude, then the system says that if you're going east, that's positive, but if you're going west of Greenwich, then that's negative. So when you enter details in here as latins and longs, you need to have a minus sign if you happen to be talking about somewhere that's west of Greenwich. And then the system will come up with a dot that shows you exactly where you are. So you'll notice that here I've put in the easting and the northing, and because they're eastings and northings, we need no minus sign. And the system's put a big dot here to show you exactly where it is, which I've chosen to be our local church. On the next screen, I think we do the same thing again as a Latin long. And you'll notice that here we've chosen the coordinate type is Latin long, and I have had to put a minus sign in to show that we're west of Greenwich. And so it shows up here, same place. And these digits are so reminiscent of the ones on the previous page, but we got there by finding Latin long. So that's how you put in a latitude and longitude to find, or an easting and a northing to find a particular place if you've been given the coordinates. But the system works in the opposite way as well. You can find out what the coordinates are of any particular building that you come across, or any feature, in fact, within Parish Online. And to do it, all you need to do is to put your cursor on the building in question. I put it on the church. You right click and say you want to do a copy. And that will drop the mini menu of you get your coordinates in eastings and northings, or in Latin long, or extent. And the extent just gives you the four corners of the screen so that you can bring anybody back here if you want to by sending them the extents. But so that's the system working the opposite way around. So the last item on the view menu is something called legend. And legend is a way of explaining what the various colors used in your system are. So since we have no system or colors selected on the main screen, we'd have to first turn on a layer that contains colors. So I'm going to choose the one called addresses because we have colors come up with that one. So I'm going to open up the addresses collection, which I do. And then we're going to select the address base plus points. And what that does is put a color-coded dot on every building. And what we're trying to do is to find out what the dots mean. The colors mean, I'm sorry. So we click on View Legend, and up it pops with the legend, and it tells us here now what each of those colors means. So, red are ordinary residential buildings, blue for commercial, and so on. So that's the legend. So anytime you get to a screen with layers on in Parish Online and you don't understand the color coding, you can find it by just clicking on View Legend. Right, so just to show you where we've been so far, we've done the hamburger, and we've looked at bookmarks, coordinate finder, and legend. And we also did the coordinate finder in reverse, so that if you're given coordinates, you can find a spot. And if you have a spot, you can give its coordinates. Next one we're going to go on to is the print menu. Again, second one along from the view. And when you're going to print out, what you want to do is to get the screen roughly to where the area you're going to print out is. So I'm going to say, let's print the center of our particular village. But I'm going to say, let's expand it a little bit, and then we click on the print menu. Print. And what print does is puts a big square in here, and that's exactly what is going to print out either on your paper or electronically. And you can now adjust this if you want to get a different part of the map in here. You can just slide it right or left, or you can scroll, zoom in and zoom out. So you get exactly what you're looking for when you print. So what I've done here is changed it slightly. I've put some titles in, saying what we get. I've expanded it with a description just so you can see what effect this has on the print when it comes. On the template, I've selected A4 landscape, but you do get the choice of A3 and a planning application, which is if you are creating a planning application to send up to your district or planning authority for the council itself. So those are the choices there. And finally, you have a choice now of, do you want to print as a PDF file, which is everyone I hope knows what a PDF document is, or you can do a graphical file as a PNG, depending on what the next use of your slide is going to be. So you have choices here whether you want to put the legend is in. We don't, because there's nothing here that's color coded. We can put a north arrow in, so I've opted for that. You can opt to hide your author's name if you wish to, and the toggle mask button I'll get to in a minute because we discuss it in a couple of slides' time. So click on print. And it would appear that nothing immediately is happening, but what you do see down here is that this underneath your print is turned to the word printing. And if this was live, you could see a little circular arrow going round and round and round. And what it's basically doing is printing up in the cloud and preparing the print file for you. And then when it's ready, it pops up with the title here. If you gave a title to your print, if you didn't give a title, it'll give you some system name like Squiggly Gook or a bunch of numbers and letters, but it pops up anyway here when it's finished. And to see what it is, you just click on the little box here and it pops the actual print itself, which is here. So what you're looking at is your framed picture. You've got your title there, you've got your description here, you've got the author here, which is the account I logged in with, the parish council account. You've got a scale, you've got today's date, and you've got down here a copyright notice, which is legally required of you by the Ordnance Survey legislation. So you now have a choice of either saving this as a download, so you can send it to anybody as an electronic copy, or you can actually print it out as a piece of paper if you're still operating in the 19th century. Other options, I said I'll come back to this page and give you a bit more details. So if someone says, can you send me a picture in the scale of 1 to 250,000, then that's one of the choices you can have here. We mentioned hiding the author as an option, which is straightforward. And the toggle mask is a system that it dims any area outside your parish. So you basically get a two brightness picture. What's inside your parish boundary is bright, and what's outside the parish boundary is less bright, which can be very helpful to show the border quite clearly, but it only applies if the print that you're doing covers the parish boundary. You won't see any difference if you do a toggle mask if everything you're printing is inside your parish. So just to say, we've done the hamburger, we've done the view, we've done the print. Next on the list is table. Okay, table menu up here. This is a fabulous way of getting data out of the system. So when you click on the table menu, it comes up and says, what layer do you want to print out? So you click on the mini arrow there, and it comes up with every layer of data that you have in the system, and you select the one you want. Now, there are hundreds of layers available, so you can save yourself time by typing in the first few letters here, and it'll throw up the appropriate details down here. It saves you doing this long scroll down to find the one you want. So for today's exercise, I'm just going to click on allotment plots. It's easy. And instantly the table picks up all the information that you have in the allotment plots layer and shows it as a row of columns and rows, just like you would see in a spreadsheet. And in fact, you can, and we will in a moment or two's time, export this to a spreadsheet. So it's really helpful. But let's just suppose you've got hundreds of layers of information here, of rows rather, and you want to drill down a bit more accurately. You can use these filter boxes. So you can say, the column I want to do is such and such, and I'm going to click on column to get that and say, let's select current ID as the filter. And then you can choose and type whether it matches it, whether it equals it, whether it contains it. We'll stick with contains. And in the value column, you just put whatever it is you're looking to drill on. And we'll say, I'm going to drill on my initials GSS. Click on that. And lo and behold, the system will then reduce the number of rows here to those fields which match the value that we put in. So we ask for ID to contain GSS, and you'll see that here the ID column contains two records which have got GSS in them. You can, in fact, put multiple choices in here. So not just GSS, you might say instead, let's put in long and plots as a different selection. So I'm going to go to the next screen, put in long and plots for you, and click on save. And now you'll see that we've gone up to 4 records because the ID matches long, plots, and long again here. In fact, they've all got long in. In fact, a couple of them have got plots. So you get your choicing. In order to stop you overwriting things that you should not overwrite, I should mention that whilst you're in this table view, you can now edit these records. So if you've got lots of records to be edited and they're all in the same sort of type, it's fastest by a long way to come up with the table view. And now you're in here, you can click on whichever field it is you want to change and then just overtype it. So if it wasn't Mr. Cox, if it was Mr. Smith, I could click on T. Cox, write in Smith, and then just save by clicking anywhere on another line. However, the editing rules apply. So if in your feature editor, one of these columns is a required type, i.e. when you fill it in, it's got a red box around it, you won't be able to turn it into a null, an empty field. It's going to require something to be in there. So the rules apply when you're doing the editing here. but it's a fabulous way of editing lots of records quickly, particularly if you're changing the same field. So if all of you, if you're doing for your allotments, for instance, and you've had 20 people who've changed ownership of the allotments, and you can just zoom through all 20 records and change them here very fast. However, you can also export to a spreadsheet, and also really, really useful. When you've finished, you can highlight. Sorry, I beg your pardon. What I'm saying is an extra button appears down the bottom right called View on Map. And by clicking on that particular record, it'll show you where it is exactly on the map. So I've clicked on that particular record and it's popped up. Really handy. So going back to the previous slide, we could choose to export into a CSV file, which of course is very editable then by either a spreadsheet or your notepad editor or whatever you want. But it's a great way of getting data out so that you can manipulate it in a spreadsheet to your heart's content. I clicked on export, asked you to be sure that you want to export. Note here you get the choice of including metadata, which is the sort of thing that says the date that this record was last modified, that sort of stuff. Most people don't need it, but it is there if you want it. Click on export and away you go. And it tells you that you're ready to download, and then you can rename it with whatever you like. So we dust down the table view, the print view, the view menu, and the hamburger menu. Next one is tools. So lots of choices under tools. All four at the moment. The latest one is quite new. So these things do change as time goes on, and people say, could we have this or could we have that? But tools gives you four options. We're going to start off with measuring. So when you're measuring, the left-hand column changes and says, what is it you want to measure? Do you want to measure length or do you want to measure area? So you select whichever tab that you want. And then there's a choice here, and if you're doing lengths, to go with metric or otherwise for measurements. You know, what scale do you want to use? Whatever. It's rather weird in that it's mostly metric numbers, and then right down the bottom it says rods. So, which is if you're using measuring allotments, then rods becomes valid. They've kept that in from the old imperial measurement days. So in order to measure anything, and here we're just going to do length, and we'll get to measuring an area shortly. I just click, if I'm going to say measure the length of this road between the A358 and down to the parish boundary. So I just take my mouse and I click on the top junction there, and then I just start sliding the mouse. And as I move the mouse, the red line will appear behind it. When I want to change direction, I click once and then change direction, go down to the next inflection, click again, and so on, down to the end of the line. And then when I finished down here, I double click and it instantly tells me what the distance is. So very convenient, very fast. If you are interested in approximations, then this is a good scale to do it on. If you need to measure something really precisely, and more precisely than 4 figures of decimals, zoom in, and then you can just move your mouse along and you'll get the whole length, but to a far greater degree of detail if you're following the road. If it's important to follow the road precisely, you get every single little niggle. So scale is important for accuracy. Or we can choose area. And in this example, we're going to measure our play area here. And in the same way, you go to the starting point, which we'll just choose the top left corner, click once, and then move the mouse along to the first corner, click again, move the mouse along to the next corner, click a couple more times, and then when you get to the end here, you can double click and it'll finish this surface for you. And then immediately tells you what the area is, in this case, in square meters. You get a choice little menu here, these 3 dots, let you save or annotate this particular record, or in fact, get rid of everything, which is getting rid of this particular record as opposed to the clear all down the bottom. So let's go back and click on tools for the next one, which is isochrone. So I click on that. And isochrone is really, really interesting. It basically shows you how far you can go in a set time from wherever you start by either car, walking, or bicycle. And the beauty of this is that it takes account of what the features are within your village. So you can go further by walking if there's a footpath, but if there's no footpath, the system reduces the distance you can travel. So I'm just saying, let's start from this crossroads here. I click once with my mouse and the system comes up and shows me 3 scales in 3 colors. So the green one is how far I could have walked, and notice that I can walk further where there's a nice easy road, less easy where there's this open countryside and expects me to go over stiles and gates and through fences and so forth. Ditto if you're on a bicycle. The scale varies tremendously. You get further where there's a straight road to go on. You go less distance where there aren't so many tracks. And finally, the pink is for a car. And it shows you the distance that you can cover in each of these choices. So I'm sorry, I got that wrong. Start again. We selected car. So this is highlighted. The green is the distance you can travel in 5 minutes. The brown is the distance you can go in 15 minutes, and the pink is the distance you can go in 30. And if you select either one of the others, then of course it changes accordingly. Really useful, very handy for people who want to know how far they can go if they've got a spare half hour and they're on feet. So the difference between this and just a straightforward expanding map of circles is that it does take account of the geography in the way. So that was isochrone. Next one is going to be annotate. And annotate is really useful for putting temporary notices on your map. So for instance, if you're going to make a presentation to your council and you want to highlight a specific object, annotating it beforehand is a great thing to do because it lets you highlight it. So when you go into annotate, if you've created annotations previously, they'll be listed here. But in this case, we have none, so we're starting afresh. So we click on new object. And it then says, so what do you want to annotate? Do you want to annotate a point or a line or a polygon, or do you just want to put on a label? So this is a bit confusing. I've known people, I've done it myself. I thought that that was a circle, but it isn't, it's a point. So if you want a circle, you go into polygon, which we'll do for today. So I'm clicking on the polygon and up comes this changed menu. And I'm saying I want to use a circle, so I'll click in there. I can change the color and the opacity of my resulting circle here. I can change the color of the line around the outside of the circle and how thick that line is. And I can also say I do want to use a label anyway. So we'll click on the label, we'll click on the use circle, and off we go. And you can see it's very clear. It's given you this red circle with a black outline and the label, which I typed in right here, centered on where I started from the middle of the village. Now, we've now finished. So you click on finish so that you can do something useful with this circle. So I'm clicking on finish, and you'll notice that now the opacity that we selected has come into play. You can actually see the map underlying the circle. And one of the points of doing this from my point of view is to say, I need to know the address information on the houses within 500 meters of the village center. So to get into the data record covered by this circle, just click on it. And up pops the record here to the left. The data on the circle itself is probably not of any interest to you, this sort of the area and that sort of stuff. But what is really interesting is what does it cover in terms of data? So click on the 3 little dots and select the data extract. And up comes this sort of nice innocent looking screen. You can say, I want to extract from something in this layer here. So I click on the mini arrow. You get a whole drop down list of things. I've selected address plus points, and then no other choices. Don't want to filter it. I just want to know what are the houses that are in that 500-meter circle. And I click on run. And it pops up with just those houses. which I think is really, there are times when that's really, really useful. And of course, it doesn't have to be a circle. It can be a polygon that you drew around the village. It can be anything you like. But this is how to get a data extract from a specific area within your parish. Really useful stuff. If you wanted to then export this to a spreadsheet, as a CSV file, click on the export button. What we're going to do is go back to tools. So we click on the X up here and take you back with this little hint on the way. So the detailed knowledge in the knowledge base is particularly good for annotate. So it's quite recommended that you go into the knowledge base, read about the annotate, which you can get to, and you click on that field when you get the presentation afterwards. So we've gone back to the tools menu. We've done the first three. We're now going to go down to the asset register export. And up it pops here with a drop-down list in the left-hand column saying what format you want. Now, at the moment, the only choice is PDF. So this isn't really a choice, but it will be in the future. We've asked them for a CSV file because the one thing I really, really would like to have as a parish councillor or clerk is a list of all the assets in a spreadsheet with all the values so that I can just top them up and send them off to the insurance company and saying, this is what you're covering for us. So I just mentioned here in passing that there is a feature within Parish Online, which I'll show you towards the end, as part of the knowledge base called the community forum. And in the community forum, they mentioned that they've just created this asset register export, and it asks for comments. And I've asked everybody I talk to please say, may we please have the CSV file version. So the more of you who go into the community forum and click on this, and I'll show you this in the Q&A section at the end, if you like, the more likely we are to get the CSV files next. So by default, every single layer in the asset register is selected. If you want only part of the asset register, you go in here and you can deselect the layers that you don't want. There is a very handy deselect all button. So if you only want to say, pick out, for instance, the defibrillators or the building contents in your asset register, then you can click on the deselect all and then just go back and select the two that you want. It's just a matter of ticking the boxes. So we're going to say we're ready to go with all the defaults selected. Click on generate report. Now it takes a while, particularly if you've got a big asset register. Somewhere like Chichester, I would expect Peter to have a number of assets once they're in there. So it takes a while, but it is working. And the open button stays grayed out. You can't click on it until the system's finished. When it's finished generating a report, you can then click on open. Bear in mind, I'm going to talk to somebody. No, good. And then you get this report, which at the current moment is in PDF format. Now, notice it's quite sizable. In our case, it's 12 pages long. Sorry, I don't know why I went through that, but here we go. Right. But you get your printout of all the assets in your asset register, and it's in a nice convenient PDF file, which you can send off to your insurance company and say, let's just confirm that we're all insuring the same thing. Very handy, but I really think it'd be even more handy when we get the CSV version. Okay, so we've done tables, tools. We're now going to move on to the next natural one would be create, but we're going to use that later. So now I'm going to jump to the search button. And up here in the top right-hand corner, you have search with a little drop-down menu, and the drop-down menu says, do you want address spaces or do you want postcode? So we're going to select for the moment postcode. So you just type in here any old postcode you like for anywhere in the country. I've just chosen this one at random, and it pops up right here. This is the center of that particular postcode. So nice big dot to indicate for you where you are. You can go from wherever you are, or whatever it is you want to do now. Or we can go up here and select address space. and type in any old address. And this is sort of a limited select system. So as the more you type, then the number of choices that's available here reduces until you've got the match that you want. So when I first type in the first house, there may be 100 choices across the country called the first house. But then as I type in the rest of the address, it drops down to the one I'm looking for. And this is the bit that in this particular case, I was looking for. And so that's the search button. Very handy. Next item to look at is the services button, which is this cogwheel up here. And there's a drop-down menu that gives you these 4 choices at the moment. We're going to select administration. And it pops up with this screen. And immediately the middle column is blank, because the system is now busily downloading my layers from the internet. If you don't have any of your layers, you haven't created any yet, then the system will stay blank. But you can see the little sort of whizzy circular arrows here, which are telling you that it is doing something. And if you've got lots of layers like I do, then they all pop up like this. So we'll go through what all these layers mean and what you can do with them slightly later on. Right now, let's just go and click on one of the other choices up here so you can see them. So I'm going to click on my organization. Very straightforward. This is where the system stores the PSGA number and your APGB number. If anybody asks you for them, this is where they are. Next thing we're going to click on is users. So I do that. And it fills up the middle column here now with all the user accounts that you've created. And you can edit any one of these by clicking on it once until it's highlighted. And then you'll see that the details of that particular user pop up in the right-hand column. And if you want to edit it, then you can click on the pencil and it gives you the chance to make any changes you want to. If you need to create a new user, click on the plus sign, which is what we're going to do now. And it pops up with these wonderful, all these red required boxes. So you cannot click on save or create a user until you put information in on all of these. So if you happen to be creating users or different accounts that have the same email name, and this works, for instance, if you're doing it for yourself. So when I'm doing this, I create a user account for a read-only person, and we'll show you that that's the type here. But then I do it again for editor only or data manager only or administrator in full. And each one of those, I would put the same email address, but the system doesn't like that. It wants each one to be unique. So if you happen to have a Gmail address, this is just a sort of a little tip to pass on. Let's suppose that my Gmail address is gstones@gmail.com. If I type in gstones plus reader at gmail.com, it'll still send the email to gstones. But as far as Parish Online is concerned, that's a unique address because it isn't gstones, it's gstones plus reader. Gmail itself ignores anything after the plus sign when it ignores the plus sign as well. But from Parish Online's point of view, you can create any number of unique email accounts just by putting on a plus sign and anything you like after it before the @ sign. So type explanation is quite important. So I've given you a link here that'll take you to the knowledge base and where they're very good at explaining the types. So back to the layers. The next one here you have a choice of is public maps. That's an entire session in itself, so I'm going to ignore it here. So just for today, we're going to click on billing, and you can only see billing if you are an administrator. And I'm not quite sure why that restriction's in place, because all it does is tell you how much your system costs, which I think should be public information anyway, but never mind. And it just gives you a note that you'll be asked 30 days before your renewal date if you wish to renew. If your renewal is done for you by BHIB, you shouldn't see this. Okay, all done. So we're going to click to maps to go back to this little globe icon. And then we get back to our little global cogwheel, and we're going to click on help and support. And this takes you to the new system, which Parish Online has just started. So don't be confused if it says XMAP and you're in Parish Online. It's all much the same system. XMAP is just the name for the big brother to Parish Online. If you are the Foreign and Commonwealth Office and you want to deal with places all over the world, you use XMAP. If you're Chichester, you want to deal with places in England, and so you use Parish Online. But Parish Online is just a limited version of XMAP. So much of what we're seeing here applies to both. So you've got some tabs up here. The tab for the knowledge base will take you straight into the knowledge base. I just wanted to point out community forum here, because we mentioned that earlier. When we get to the Q&A session, if you remind me, we'll go into here and I'll show you what I meant by adding your names to the requests for the CSV file for the export of the asset register. So if you're looking for anything in knowledge base, simply type in here in the search question, or you can click on knowledge base and you've got another field as well, but it gives you a bit more of indexes to show you what's available. And then if you want to find anything, just type it in here in the search box. So very, very good. The quality of this knowledge base is very much better than its predecessor. A lot of it is being rewritten as we speak. So you often see that something was, the date of this was 4 days ago or something, because they've only just rewritten it. But good stuff, this knowledge base. I'm really highly recommend using it. So just to do a quick update, we've covered everything except the create menu in the top row. And the create menu is, you're going to use it yourself in the interactive session, which we're now about to start. So hopefully you've all got access to a Parish Online yourselves. If you don't, then no matter, you can just follow through the slides. But what I hope you'll be able to do is jump between your screen with Parish Online on it and the Zoom screen with what I've got on it. And what we're going to do is create a new layer, one for each type of point, line, polygon. We're going to add a feature to each one. Then we'll do an edit, show you how you edit the feature, show you how you edit the layer, show you how you get rid of them, and show you how to add an attachment to them. So in order for you to do this, you'll be switching from your Zoom screen to your Parish Online screen. If you're looking at Zoom in the Zoom app, then you do an Alt tab to jump between the two. And if you're looking at Zoom in your browser, then you use Control to jump between the two, and you can just use the tab number. So if Zoom is in tab 1 and your Parish Online is in tab 2, then you just do Control 1 or Control 2 accordingly, just jump backwards and forwards. I'm assuming that you're using a computer with a mouse as opposed to a tablet. And on this screen that I'm going to show you now, it'll be what it is that we're going to do. So we're going to create a layer and some features to add to the layers. You can only create layers yourself in the Parish Layers part of Parish Online. And then each layer consists of a type of geometry. So points are for things like bus shelters, trees. Lines are for things like footpaths, boundaries, and polygons basically is everything else. Each layer can only have one geometry type. You create, as you make the layer, you determine which fields or columns you're going to create to store the data. And then when you add a feature, you actually put in the data for each of those columns and you move the feature to the map. So 2 steps, one to create a layer and second to add features to that layer. So right now we're going to create these 3 columns for each of the layers that you're creating. And the first one will be a point layer, then a line layer, and then finally a polygon layer. So this is where you start working. You go into Parish Online, you're doing this bit, and we're now going to start using your create menu, which is the one that we dropped out or jumped over during the presentation earlier. And if you click on your create menu in your Parish Online screen now, you'll see you've got 2 choices and you want to click on new layer. And if it doesn't show up there, then you're in trouble. But I think both of you have got admin rights, so you're going to be okay. I've created on add new layer, and on my screen, you should be able to see what you're seeing on your screen, which is a create a new layer pop-up box. And all you want to do is type in the title here. I've suggested for reference, you just put your name and call it test, and then hyphen, and then since we're doing a point layer, you can call it test hyphen point. The point about this, is that it needs to be fairly short, because this is what's going to go into the left-hand columns. So what you type in this layer title has got to fit into this left-hand column. So not a lot of information here, which is why we go to the next button and you get a chance to put in a lot more information. But first of all, we're going to select the geometry type. I suggest we call this one a point. But you'll see you have three choices: point, line, or polygon. Select point for today. And then in the future, you can put whatever you like in this layer description, but the point of it is to remind you in 6 months or a year's time what on earth you created this layer for. So this just gives you the background information to help you understand why on earth you created this layer in the first place. When you're set, create on next. And it comes up and says, okay, now we need to add columns to your layer. What columns do you like? And you get a new column by clicking on the plus sign. So click on the plus, and it comes up with a column which is already named for you with the name of name, which is fine. That's what we want for our first layer. So we also want it as a text type, which is correct. So we're set for the next one. Click on the next plus sign at the top of the right-hand column. And you'll see it renames it name for you, but it says a little red warning sign that it can't be called name. The word name can only be used once. It must be unique. So we're going to change the word name on this second row to date. So just put your cursor on the word name and overtype it or delete it and type in date, and then move to the middle type and select in from the drop-down arrow, select date, and you're done. And then we've got one more column to add. So click on the plus sign again at the top of the right column. And again, same thing, you're going to change the word name on the third row to read status. Leave it as a text type, but we're now going to add in a couple of allowed values. So click on the add plus under the allowed values column. And you should get an invitation to add an allowed value. Where it says equals, add a value, just type in not yet started. Then because we're going to add another value, click on the add sign, top right, and you get a chance to add another one, and you can call that under construction, and then click on add again, and the third one you can call finished. So if you're all happy, we've got 3 layers of allowed values. Not yet started, under construction, and finished. When you're happy, just click on confirm. And now it'll say a summary of what you've done. And if you're happy, then you can click on finish. There is no problem in getting things wrong in Parish Online. If you've got an issue, we can always come back and edit it later. That's true for almost anything that you do. So don't panic, just click on finish for today and we'll see where we've got to. So, there's a tip here, which I'm not going to go over now because it's for your reading later. But basically it says you don't have to add 3 times under construction, finished, and not yet started. You can put them into a little file, cut and paste it into the whole system, and it'll add all 3 lines for you. But that's a bit complex for today. We don't have to bother it. So moving on. You're now back on your main screen, hopefully. And you should see in the list of your parish layers, your new test layer. Now, if you happen to have parish layers before, you may need to scroll down because Parish Online always adds the latest layer to the bottom of the list of parish layers. So shout and yell at me if you haven't found your test layer, and you need to just click on it once. And it should then show up that you've clicked on it, basically. Sorry, I'm being a bit slow here. What I'm going to suggest we do is we make one of those columns in your new layer a required column so that whenever someone is adding a new feature in future, they must complete the required column. And this just saves you getting lost records. If there's something in there, then you can always search for it and find it later. But if people have created a new feature with nothing in any of the data columns, then it makes it much more tricky to find later. So we're going to just show you how to make a required column in your line. So now's the time to go back up to your cogwheel, top right-hand side, click on it to get the drop-down list and go into administration. And then your layers should pop up again. And the bottom one should be your new test layer. You may have to scroll to find it, but it will be there. And click on it once to select it. And then in the right-hand column, it changes to the three columns that you've created in the layer. And there's a couple of tabs under the word layer details. You either have a general tab or a columns tab, and you want to click on columns so that we get the chance to complete the required box. So you'll see that when you click on columns, the three columns come up: name, date, and status. The search and query lines have been completed for you automatically by the system. We'll discuss those in another session. And what you want to do is to click in the required box opposite the name column, so that when you do that, you just get a new tick added. And in the top right corner, the save button has gone bright yellow. Click on that. And the system will say, are you sure you want to save? And you say, yes, please. So you click on save. And then you should get a little green pop-up box. It's only there for a few seconds, which tells you it has saved. And then when we finished, we can click on the globe to go back to the maps. So just to summarize where we are, we've created a new point layer. We've added three columns to it. We configured the status column to have drop-down allowed values. We've made the name column required, and we've saved it, and we're ready for the next stage. Now, I'd like you to do the same again for a geometry type line and a geometry type polygon. So that's two new layers to create. On my screen, I've put the steps you need to go through for each one. But in the meantime, I'm hoping that whilst I sip a cup of coffee, you guys are going to do all the work and create a new layer for a line, and then a new layer later for a polygon. And you're going to have the same columns in each. So you're going to create three columns: name, date, status. The date field will be a date type. The status field will be allowed values. You put in the three allowed values, not yet approved, under construction, and finished, or make up your own, it doesn't matter. And you're going to make the name column a required column. And this is where somebody hopefully will forget how to do this, and they can just ask. So I will sit here patiently drinking coffee. I'm just going to come back, stop sharing my screen so I can see you guys if you're making progress. How are we doing, people? Both done. Okay, Peter's got the look of a man who's finished. The Moon, you're near enough finished, or are we going to carry on? Or you need more time? 1 second, okay. Peter, just so you know what's coming your way, it started raining here.
Oh, has it?
Yes.
Such joy. I've got to wander down to the canal basin once this meeting finishes. So I'm going to get wet.
I didn't know you had a canal in Chichester. Where does that come from?
Well, it's an old canal. It doesn't connect with the sea anymore, but it used to. It used to run right out to Chichester Harbour, and it linked in with the canal that run through Guildford, that sort of area, but also it ran into London.
Oh, is that the Weybridge navigation? Okay, yes.
Yeah.
I'm quite interested in canals. My parents lived on them for 40 years.
Right.
Traveled the entire system. And in the days before smartphones, it was very interesting because you'd go and visit them and you'd say, where are you going to be on Saturday on the telephone? They say, oh, we'll be here. But then, of course, things happen and you discover they aren't anywhere near there. And I found the safest way of finding them was to go and visit each pub between where they had been and where they might be now, and they would be at one of the pubs somewhere.
They sound like good people.
Yep. Well, it was a very relaxing way of life. I mean, I must say I found it hugely appealing. You just stayed somewhere that you liked until you got fed up with it and then rattled on to the next one. And it really was so peaceful that my stepmother lived to 102 and my father made it to 97. So it was clearly recommended for long life.
Yeah. Please tell me that they said the secret to their longevity was a drink every day.
Well, in the case of my stepmother, quite a lot of drink every day. Let me go back to sharing the screen just so we can see where you are. So it doesn't matter if you haven't finished all three types, but if you had done well and good, what we're going to do now is add in some features. So I'm going to go to the next
just
page.
Can I quickly check one thing? I don't know how, but I made test 3 twice. How can I double the tap?
Hang on a minute, let me stop sharing my screen.
Okay, sorry.
Why don't you share your screen? Are you familiar with that?
Yeah. I'll if I am allowed to share. I need to be. I'm disabled at the moment.
No, now you should be all right now.
Okay, I'll try now. So now, what did I do?
Exactly. What have you done?
Yeah, you can see on the left side it says test 3 twice.
Oh, I see. Oh, it really doesn't matter. What we can do is it's a good example of how we're going to change this.
Oh, okay.
So just click on the top right-hand cogwheel.
Okay.
Go into administration. And your layers will pop up in time.
Eventually.
There you go. So now click on one of those test 3s. That one will do fine. And click on the pencil at the top of the middle column, the pencil.
All right, yeah.
So just click on that, and now you can change the title, change it to test 2, whatever it should be.
I think it's a duplicate, so maybe I need to delete it.
Well, it doesn't matter. If you want to delete it, then you can just delete it.
Oh, I can't.
Oh, yeah. You need to highlight it first. So what are you going to click on? No, I can't. Hang on, this part of my screen missing. If you go back to the previous page, what you got down the bottom? You got a save or anything down the bottom? Nothing?
How do I close this window?
That's interesting, isn't it? Off the top of my head, is no little X in the top right corner.
No.
Just click there. No, I can't. There's something missing. I can't see where it is on your screen.
No.
If you hit the escape button. No?
No.
Oh, you're stuck. You're here forever, Ramon.
Oh dear. What have we done? What have we done?
That's a very interesting. Let me just see if I can reproduce that here. Bear with me a second. Because I don't know how on earth you got there.
It's only me can do that things.
Right.
Plus delete.
So you got into a administration. Just waiting for my layers to come up. Hang on a second. Right, let's go into that one. Let's edit it. Oh, so down the bottom right corner, you should have a save button. If you scroll the screen down a bit, does it show? Yeah, there you go.
Oh, here we go. Yes.
Yeah.
So if I want to delete it, what do I do?
Click on the cancel. Click on the cancel.
Cancel.
Yeah. Now you got the highlighted one. Go up to the delete button at the top.
That's it.
Yep.
Here we go.
There you go. And then you have to type the word deleting because they want to be really, really sure you want to do this.
I've never done that, so that's how.
There you go. Excitement galore. There you go.
Okay, thank you very much.
Good. So let me go back to sharing my screen. Yeah, very good. And I need to be in slide mode. There we go. So what we're going to do now is add a feature. So let's go with your new point layer. So click on the point layer. And what you want to do is to adjust your map so that it gives you space to put whatever it is you're going to put in. And we're going to do a point and a build and a layer, sorry, and a line and a polygon. So you choose a nice open space. And for my example, I'm going to choose our recreation ground. So you need to move somewhere on your map where you've got open space where you can create these new features you're just going to create now. So having done that, we now want to go to the layer we're going to make a feature in. So choose your point layer, whatever one you called it, the test layer, and right click anywhere on this layer, and up will pop this mini menu, and you can click on add feature. And your left-hand column will change to a blank data record, and you'll be able to put what you want on the map. So you'll notice that the name box should be in red because it's highlighted, it's required. That's the one that we set up as a required field. So put in anything you like in there. This is going to point, so you can just call it test point or something like that. By all means, select today's date. And by all means, just click on the down arrow on status and you'll see those three choices that you put in and just select one of them. It doesn't matter which one. Call it not yet started if you like. And you'll notice that the button at the bottom, the save button, is still grayed out. And if I change to show you how I filled in mine, you'll see it's still grayed out. And that's because you need to actually place this feature somewhere on the map. So if you move your cursor over the map, you'll see it changes to a crosshairs. And you can just go to the point where you want to put it. Bear in mind, this is just a point. So you can click anywhere with a left click, which I've done. And you get a blue circle coming up. And you'll see that you can now click on the save button at the bottom of the left column. So click on save. And your circle will turn to red to show it's entered. And the left-hand column assumes that you'd want to add another item, which you do, but we're going to add the new item in the line layer. So we've added a point. Now we're going to do a line. So you can go up to the select a layer and click on the little mini arrow and then select your new line layer, which I'm going to do. And it comes up with a list of all the layers available, and I'm just going to click on my line. So the record on your left again turns to a new record. You can fill in the details. I just called mine Graham test line, fill in the dates, fill in on the status. And you'll see that, again, you won't be able to save it until you've actually put the line in. So just for today's sake, I selected the dot that we put in as the start point. So put your mouse on the start point, click once, and then move the mouse. And as you move it, a blue line will follow it, get to a change direction, click once, change direction, click again, change direction, and I've gone down. When you've reached the end of your new imaginary footpath, just double click. And you'll find that the save button is now highlighted. And you double click and save it, and you'll see it turns to red to show that it's been saved. And again, the left-hand column has gone to a blank column to expect you to add a new layer or a new feature. This time we're going to select a new polygon feature. So select the polygon layer from your list of layers up top and go ahead and create an entry in terms of a title, a name and a date and a status. But adding it is a little bit more complicated now because it expects a polygon. So I've gone one too far, sorry. So find a corner of your building and just click once, then move your mouse as a blue line will follow you. Go down to the next corner, click once, change direction, and then you can do whatever shape house you want. I mean, I've done a complicated one. You can do a simple one. You can do a triangle. You can do a square. You can do a multi-weird shape, whichever suits your brain until you've finished, and then you double click to finish. And then you'll be able to save. So you'll notice that each time you've saved, your new feature changes from blue to red to show that it's saved. And you should now have 3 features on your screen. And the left-hand column is looking for another feature. We don't want to add any more. So click on the X opposite the feature word, editor word, and then it shuts down. And you'll now see your screen with all 3 of your layers having tick marks on the left-hand side. So you are displaying 3 layers. And on the right-hand side in the map, you should see all 3 of the points that you've done, the building, the dot, and the path. Everyone happy with that? Okay, so to edit any one of these, you click on whichever one you want to do. So let's say we're going to click on the building. So just click on the red of the building. And that's what I've done. And you'll notice that the item you've selected, in this case, the building, gets highlighted in blue. So you know which of the items on the screen you're actually editing. The data column has changed to the record for that particular feature, our building. And then you get the chance of editing. You can either go into, click on the pencil to edit, and you can edit the fields, or you can move the object. And moving the object is just a matter of clicking on it, and you'll see a blue dot appears, and you can pull the blue dot to whatever shape you like, whatever position you like. So you can move the building over the field, or if you're on the dot feature, you can move the dot or the footpath. You just make corrections by using the blue dot and moving things as you want them. So that's how you edit. If you wanted to delete the feature, what we did with you, Maroon, was to delete the layer. But here we're going to delete the feature. So you can click on your building's highlighted. You click on the dustbin and it will disappear. And that's what I'm going to do. Just before I do that, let me mention one other thing. On the right-hand side of my screen, I've told you that the attachments box is now visible on your left-hand side. And if you wanted to add an attachment to your feature, you just click on the plus sign and it asks you what you want to add. You can select anything from your computer. It can be a photograph, it can be a Word document, it can be a spreadsheet, it can be a note. Whatever you want to add, the system will just add it to this particular record. All right, so I'm going to delete the building. I click on the delete dustbin. It asks me to confirm that I want to delete it, which I do. And then on my picture, the building has disappeared. So the next step is how to remove a layer, which we've already actually done with you, Ramon. So you click on the cogwheel, click on administration. It comes up with the layer. You can select the layer and just delete it with the dustbin. And you get asked to confirm. So we go back to the maps when you're finished by clicking on the global maps, the top right-hand corner. So let me just summarize where we got to. and thank you for staying with me all this time. We've covered every menu in the top row of Parish Online. We've added a layer of each type, point, line, and polygon. We've added a feature to each layer. We've added and deleted a feature, and we've added and deleted a layer, and we've also added an attachment, or we could have done if you wanted to one of your records. So the community forum and the knowledge base are available on this link. And we are now at the end of the session. And I have a couple of questions for you, as well as any questions for me. So my first question to you is, if you want any other training sessions that you haven't seen yet, please let me know. I'm always keen to know new topics. And I would like to discuss with you, and let me come back to your screen now, whether the speed of the presentation is right. So the way I've developed all of the presentations so far is to have lots and lots of slides and to go hurtling through them and then send them out afterwards and say, here, you look at this. But I do, of course, have the choice of saying, why don't we go through this much more slowly? It'll take a lot longer. You may need to divide it into 2 sessions, but which would people prefer? So I'm just asking each group of people that comes on a training session whether they like the fast and speedy one, or whether they much prefer to go a lot more slowly.
I'm okay with this approach.
You're okay with this view, or certainly with the two of you, it's easy because you're both familiar with computers and both quite literate.
No, I think it worked really well.
Good. Well, thank you. Any comments that you want to make? Any questions you've got? Oh, yes, I promised to show you that particular article in the got to go in Parish Online. So let's come out of here. Let's go to Parish Online. Let's go to the community box. There we go. Go into community. And you'll see here are all the items that people have brought up in the past. The one I was interested in is in the asset register exports. So to look at any item in the community forum, you just click on it and it pops up and shows you the original question. And I said, I think this is a great thing, but I would really like it in CSV format. So I hereby register a request. And then 3 other people have said, yes, CSV format is by far the most useful. And someone has said they want CSV, and somebody else has said they want CSV. So if you two would care to add your names to this list, I would be very grateful, because I really want to get CSV format. The more people that ask, the more it's likely to get done. So if you happen to be online at the moment and you want to go into the knowledge base, you can get, there are 2 ways of getting here. One is to click on the cogwheel top right inside Parish Online and then select help and support, and it takes you here and you choose the community tab. And once you're there, you can, I suggest you store this particular address in your favorites, because you can get back to the knowledge base and the community forum without having to go through Parish Online. You don't need to be in Parish Online to get here. So I'm going to close my sharing now, but I mentioned that in passing. And this is the point where it's entirely up to you to say, I do have a question, or I don't have a question, or I'm bored and I'd like to go now.
I've got another appointment I've got to get to, I'm afraid, so I'll have to rush off. But
Peter,
actually, I haven't got any questions. It was all very well explained. So
well, I'm glad you liked it. I hope that you have a lot of fun with Parish Online.
Yeah, thank you very much. Nice to meet you, Ramon.
Ah, thank you very much, Peter. Lovely to meet you too.
And congratulations on your engagement.
Oh,
yep.
Thank you.
So I'm sure everyone asks you, how did you meet your fiance?
Through work.
Here in the UK?
Yeah.
You didn't meet him in Latvia?
No. Just
right,
here,
well,
yeah.
Good. So when's the lucky day?
I haven't decided yet. It's on me now.
Good. Well, look, thank you both very much for your time. Lovely to see you. I hope I see you again. And please do feel free to get back in touch if you need anything.
Yeah, and I've got some other sessions registered as well.
I think Peter does as well. So
yeah, we'll see you next week, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? All right.
Take care, both.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.